Hello and welcome to the New World Review, your source for everything anime and manga. My name is Liam, and something that you may or may not know about me is that there's quite a few things that people don't know about me. Nobody cares though, because what we want is information about fictional hunters. And I have just the MANBOY to examine today. GON Freaks, you may have heard of him, but trust me, you haven't heard of all of him. So today we are going to present 10 fun facts about GON Freaks that you did not know, and if you did, I don't care, because they're still gonna be fun. I mean, this 12-year-old little Chad lad looks simple, acts simple, but is anything but. And I don't use the term Chad lad lightly. For a preteen, GON is quite shockingly experienced in the ways of the world. And there is a rather salacious series of facts in here that will change the way anime-only watchers see GON forever. But first, this video is sponsored by PeerVPN, the world's most transparent VPN provider with over 30 million downloads. A VPN essentially changes your IP, rerouting internet traffic through an encrypted tunnel, thus hiding all of your salacious online activities from prying eyes, such as ISPs, hackers, and network administrators. Peer is also the most customizable VPN on the market, as well as 100% open source, meaning that the code is public so anyone can look under the old hood if desired. Because when Peer says transparent, they mean transparent. Peer works with all major streaming services, be it your Netflix, your Crunchyrolls, or whatever your crazy kids are watching these days. And speaking as someone who lives in Australia, a country riddled with geo-blocking issues because nobody likes us, VPNs make me feel like I'm actually connected to the world around me. That way I can watch series like One Piece in peace. Plus, Peer offers access to 24/7 customer support, so head over to the link in the description because currently Peer also has a special deal offering 84% off and 4 extra months for free. But let us now commence with GON fun fact number the first, which is that he is a freak, like quite literally. His surname Freaks definitely strikes a chord with English speakers. However, I think that we, more often than not, forgive it as some sort of magical Japanese word that we uncultured swine simply do not understand. However, the name is surprisingly simple and derives straight from the English word freaks. It's slightly different because freaks in Japanese would be pronounced as furikuzu, whilst GON's name is furikusu, with an S sound instead of a Z. Or a Z if you're American, and you probably are, but just know that you're like the only country that does that. It's Z everywhere else. Even in Canada it's Z, which is that's crazy. But interestingly enough, there are some translations which take this even more literally, such as the Malaysian incarnation, where GON's name is, and forgive my pronunciation, Gon Si Pelik, which means the weird GON. And not to be left out, his first name also has some meaning attached to it, as GON is a Japanese onomatopoeia for hitting something like really hard, which I guess sounds like this, like a gong. No, that's like a bell. Gone? Gong, 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 gong. Or maybe not. Either way, the name really suits his simple, punchy punch self. But next up, we have something that initially shocked me quite a fair bit, which is that GON is not particularly popular amongst the Hunter x Hunter fanbase. In fact, he's never even won a single Hunter x Hunter character poll, which is unusual for someone who we would consider to be a primary protagonist, but it does get worse. Because not only has GON never won a character poll, which is a double negative, but we're about to make that a triple, because he's never even come second. There have been 3 official polls conducted over the lifespan of Hunter x Hunter, and all 3 of them have had the exact same medal winners, Killua in first, Kurapika in second, and GON unceremoniously in third. Now you might say, hang on internet man, third is not bad. In fact, it's the opposite of bad, which I believe is good. And yeah, bronze medal, it's alright I suppose. It's better than anything below it, which is nothing. But the real story is told in the voting numbers. In the first character poll, both Killua and Kurapika received over 13,000 votes each to claim that first and second place. Meanwhile, GON was pretty severely trailing in third with just under 4,000 votes, and you might notice that 13,000 is a slightly bigger number than 4,000. So that's a pretty wide gap, and that trend continued with the second and third polls. And with that in mind, it's not too difficult to see why Togashi may have made the decision to potentially retire GON from the series and instead give Killua the election arc and Kurapika the succession war arc. And whilst GON's popularity is fascinatingly negligible, this sort of thing has happened before. Specifically in another Yoshihiro Togashi series, Yu Yu Hakusho, with its primary protagonist, Yusuke. Mr. Urameshi managed to do slightly better than GON initially by coming second in the first poll of the series, but by the end of its run, Yusuke was a solid third place behind Hiei and Kurama, who just so happened to be the Yu Yu Hakusho counterparts to Killua and Kurapika. So there's a lot of repetition happening here, but that is far from all. GON is most certainly inspired and even follows a similar general trajectory to Togashi's former protagonist. Key beats of both of them include transforming into black-haired, demonic-style man-beasts, as well as both killing for the sake of revenge. Oh, and of course, they both hold green as their trademark color. The difference, however, is that YUSUKE inhabits a more standard shonen world, where this empathy and humanity always triumphed, whereas GON went down he went in a slightly different path, revealing a much darker inner nature, and in the end becoming something of a GON monster. Meanwhile, GON also shares one similarity to One Piece protagonist Monkey D. Luffy in terms of their birthday, both of whom happen to be born on the 5th of May, which is Children's Day in Japan. However, this one single birthday happens to open up a pretty big can of controversy, because fun fact number, the 4th one, is GON's age. What is it, and why is it so unbelievably hard to work out? Simple answer to the second question here. It's because Hunter x Hunter it's not exactly known for its flawless continuity. In fact, the series has so many flaws that it could probably just open its own hotel chain. But GON's age is stated at multiple times throughout the series, although some of those should be taken more seriously than others, or less seriously than others. It depends which time it is. For example, during the chairman election arc, he is stated to be 12. However, this is probably impossible. Chronologically, GON is 11 at the time of the first Hunter exam, which Togashi states only takes place during January. Great. So GON became a Hunter in January and then turned 12 the following May. We then have another Hunter exam during Greed Island, which Killua participates in, which puts us in January of the next year, and following that, the Chimera Ant arc ends in August, which according to the mess of dates and days Togashi puts on paper, also known as a timeline, that would make GON 13, meaning that he cannot possibly be 12 during the chairman election arc. And this might seem like splitting hairs, but Togashi is weirdly specific when it comes to dates and times. He has very clear ideas, not so much about what he wants to happen, but definitely when he wants it to happen, which has very much left this series open to a lot of inconsistencies like this. But for something that doesn't fit into any timeline because it never happens, let's now turn to the 1999 anime adaptation. Because there are a lot of, how shall we say, interesting filler scenes in the 1999 version, but this is one of the more perplexing ones. During episode 54, which is the York New City arc, there is a scene of GON and Killua in a hotel room, where Killua is, how shall we say, indulging in some adult content. And he even invites GON to partake in what Killua himself describes as exciting programs. And he goes on to say that this is one of the advantages of staying in cheap hotels. That's a bit of a Killua pro tip for you there. But GON, the innocent young wonder lad he is, declines this generous offer from his ever so thirsty best friend, which leads us quite interestingly into our next fact being that GON is quite the ladies' man. Actually, I think I've used the word man very liberally there because he's more like a lady's boy. Look, there are some parts of Hunter x Hunter that are more questionable than others. Hisoka often comes up due to his swing style urges, but another topic that gets frequently questioned is GON's date with Palm, given that it doesn't even matter whether he was 12 or 13 at the time because it's still kinda weird, but those instances are just nothing compared to the manga. In chapter 217, after arranging a date with Palm, GON and Killua have a discussion regarding GON's experience with women, at which point he reveals that there were often all-female crews that made port on Whale Island who showed a keen interest in our minor Chad lad, and in fact, let's quote GON specifically. Sometimes ships with all-female crews stopped by Whale Island. Some of them only go out with younger guys. They took me into town and taught me a lot of stuff. They call those types cougars. And while this could be quite innocent, like GON being taken into town and being taught the ways of chivalry and fine gentlemanly stuff, I mean, I suppose it could be that, but the implications they're pretty straightforward. So straightforward, in fact, that this line was changed in the 2011 anime. Instead of GON referring to the women as cougars, he labels them as fanatics, which it's still a bit odd, but it does definitely remove some of the overt sexual connotations. And Togashi does have a poignant history with this topic in some of his other series. I mean, the less said about Makura from the Yu Hakusho manga, the better, because damn, that's a dark story. Moving swiftly along to fun fact number whatever one it is we're up to. This one is all about nen abilities or lack thereof, because GON is one of the only primary, secondary, perhaps even tertiary characters in Hunter x Hunter who does not technically have his own nen ability. When it comes to his Jujunken technique, none of it actually constitutes an ability. Each case is just a basic use of nen, be it enhancement, transmutation, or emission. And the closest he comes to achieving an actual nen ability would be briefly transforming into Adult GON. But fun fact, fact about the Jajunkan technique, its name was a mistake. This is one of my favorite things about GON, but when Knuckle asked what his abilities were called, he stuttered whilst trying to say Junkan. So of course Knuckle took this super seriously and was all like, Jajunkan, I like it. And so GON just kept it because that's a GON thing to do. But what I always thought might have been kind of cool is if GON developed an ability using his old trademark fishing rod. That could have been quite interesting, but look, it wasn't meant to be. Instead, Togashi chose to focus on hand-to-hand combat, which brings us to the topic of arms, which hands are generally attached to. Now, you may or may not have noticed over the course of Hunter x Hunter, but GON has this very handy motif, being that something generally bad tends to happen to one of his arms in any given arc. During the Hunter exam, his arm was broken by Hanzo. During Heaven's Arena, an arm was broken by Guido. Then in York New City, GON was subject to Nobunaga's brutal arm-based wrestling. Moving on into Greed Island, just a whole chunk of arm was just plain blown off by Genthru. And then of course in the Chimera Ant arc, Pito's post-mortem Nen severed an entire arm. Or at least the large majority of an arm, just more arm than had previously been severed, I guess is the point. So it's a rather painful motif to adopt. And speaking of adopted, GON was adopted by his aunt Mito, however he does still very much take after his father Jing. Although this only really becomes clear during the Chimera Ant arc. Whilst GON was in his sulky, ragey mode, his general intelligence skyrocketed, and all of a sudden he was capable of making Jing-level calculations regarding the actions of those around him. In fact, there was one particular moment where GON was using just pure leverage to halt two of the Royal Guard in their tracks. GON didn't actually have the power to defeat either of them, but he understood the situation around him and played it perfectly to his advantage. So as simple as he may appear when it comes to numbers, there is a pretty terrifying level of mental potential residing within young GON. Also, as our next point of interest, GON has a close childhood friend that we never got to know. Sort of like Kurapika and Pyro, just without the whole being brutally slaughtered thing. On Whale Island, GON was good friends with a girl named Noko, who we see very briefly seeing him off at the port, which interestingly in the manga, Noko is smiling when GON departs, whereas in the 2011 anime, she is crying. So they were really taking every opportunity to flesh out some fairly insignificant characters there, which is nice, I like that. And GON even mentions Noko when he takes Killua back to Whale Island to visit. But the very fact that she ever gets mentioned at all shows that Togashi may have had some plans for her at some stage, and that she was perhaps just another character who got forgotten about in a grand process of improvisational manga. Sort of like, say, Leorio. But something we should not forget about is to watch this next video. It's also about Hunter x Hunter because there's always more to learn, explore, and experience with this wonderful series, so I look forward to seeing you there.